So now we're ready to add some text and we're going to use that arc as a guide. So we come up to the Draw menu, select Text, and then Text on Arc. And it's asking us for the text string, which is what we want to place in the drawing. And I'm just going to say any road USA. It asks you for a text height. I like to make them bigger. And it's going to be dependent on the scale that you're drawing at, and that will just come to you. Now we have the option of selecting the text offset on the screen, because it's going to ask us what do we want to attach this text to, and it's going to be that arc that we just drew. I don't want to do that. I'm going to say no, let's not do that. And it says text offset. I want to draw the text right on the line, so I'm going to say 0 offset. And the next thing that is important, and I sometimes forget, is to answer this question here. It says, is the base of the text towards the radius point? Well, in our case, it is not going to be. We want the base of the text to be in the opposite direction. So I'm going to say no. And now say OK. And you'll notice it's now saying, OK, select the arc or the polyline arc segment that is going to be the base for this text. So we'll pick that arc. And now notice we have it on a rubber band, and we can place it anywhere along that radius until we left pick with our mouse. So I'm going to pick right there. And now I want to go back and repeat that command. But this time my text is going to be just 2. I'll answer no again, and the text string is going to be 1.2 miles to town. Say OK. I'm going to select the same arc, and this time I'm going to pick right there. And you're asking, why did I do that? Well, now I'm going to draw some lines for trimming edges. And I'm going to say Edit, Trim. I'm going to select all of these lines as my cutting edges. Press Enter. And now it says select the entity to trim. And remember, we want to pick the part of the line that we want to go away. So I'm going to pick there. I'm going to pick there. I'm done. So I press Enter. And now I want to delete these cutting edges. And you can almost see an arrow now because I want to give it a direction. And Carlson lets you draw just arrows. And you'll find that under the Draw menu, Leader, Arrowhead. And it's going to ask you a series of questions. First is the arrowhead size. Let's just pick 3. And now it's asking us to pick a line or polyline to add the arrow to. I'm going to pick there, and you'll notice it drew the arrowhead. I'm done. Press Enter. So now we've added a little more detail to the drawing. Some symbols that we're going to use later in our design. And it's really starting to shape up and look like something that will be meaningful to the end user and certainly for construction purposes. Now we've gotten the worksheet to a point where we can begin to think about the actual design, where we're going to place our septic system. And as you might have guessed, the test pit area is where the future leach field is going to go. But I would like to see a little more contour data in this particular area. We have a 100 contour and we have a 102 contour. And I want the bed to be somewhere in this area because it's a flatter area on the lot. There's another area down here. I could have placed the field here just as easily. But we're going to go with the test pit locations as the preferred area. But I want to see contour intervals of 0.5 feet. And obviously we wouldn't want to see half-foot contours throughout the entire lot. But for purposes of design, we do. So how can we do that? Well, we're going to go right back to our surface menu item, select Triangulate and Contour, and this time we're going to place contours on a layer that I've called Design Contours. And we're going to change the contour interval to 0.5. We're then going to go back to our Triangulate tab, and we don't need to make any adjustments using a triangulation file. We don't need an inclusion or exclusion area, so we're going to deselect that. And this one is very important. We do not want to erase the contours that are already in the drawing. So we're going to deselect that. Now we're ready to add the contours, the 0.5 interval contours, in the area that we're about to specify. Let's say OK. And down at the command line, it's saying select entities or points. It's convenient that contours are allowed entities, and those contours have elevation. So we can allow Carlson to interpolate between those two contours the half-foot increments, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So I've selected those contours. I'm done selecting contours or entities, so I'm going to press Enter. And look at what it did. It gave us those half-foot intervals. And just because I don't want to get lost in my drawing, I typically will add labels, contour labels again. And this time, I have changed the text size scalar from 0.1, which is the multiplier, times whatever your horizontal scale is. So for our general contours, it's at 0.1, which would mean that the text height was 2 feet high. I don't need it that high in this smaller zone, so I set it to 0.05. So 0.05 times 20, it's going to make our text height about 1 foot high. Now this is important. Prior to these contours, this was set as 0. We want to show in the text, the label for the contour, the decimal place, because we're going now to 0.5. So we have to be sure to select the appropriate decimal position. Normally, it's going to be set at 0. But in this particular case, we're going to go to 0.0. So it will show 1 decimal place to the right. If you were going to use quarter foot contour intervals, you would select 0.00 to show the 2 decimal places. We could just as easily select that as well. In fact, why don't we leave it there? I've also opted, because I created that layer called Design Contours, I want to set the labels to the same layer. And now we're ready to say OK. And again, it's asking us to pick the first point for our line, cross the contours that we want to label, and there we are. I'm done. Hit escape. I'm going to change the color of that layer to make it a little easier for us to see. So I'm going to go to the layers icon, select that, select the layer called Design Contours, and pick a new color. Let's make it red. OK. And we're done with that. Close that out. And now you see those half-foot contour intervals. And don't be alarmed that it places one on the highest contour as well, even though we only wanted these ones in the middle. When we're done, we're just going to turn off the design contour layer anyway, so it isn't going to be a problem at all. But now we can more precisely place our future leach field at a half-foot increment if we needed it. And if we found that we needed even a further division, you'd follow the same process and change your contour interval to 0.25. That's all we're going to talk about in this session, but we're now ready to begin the actual design. And to quickly recap what we discussed in this tutorial, we started by manipulating contours using the triangulation file, or the TIN data. I introduced you to text on an arc. We learned how to change polylines into special polylines like tree lines or polylines that would indicate electric lines, water lines, and the like. And we finished up with how to add contours to a specific area at a specified contour interval other than the 2 feet.